A guy wakes up from a dream where a tiny version of himself seems to be saving a woman from death at the hands of another armed woman. He finds himself inside a bus where a girl wakes him up. She asks him how he managed to sleep through all that time after the massacre that happened. Although we have no idea what she's talking about, the bus is full of dead bodies. Outside, a creature that looks like a large dragon is smashing everything and trying to get inside the bus. There's even a person impaled by one of the monster's claws, which makes it seem like he killed all those passengers. Our sleepy hero sees the creature and realizes it's a wyvern. The boy throws a fallen microphone at the beast's claw. The beast feels agonizing pain as if it had been shot or something, and then it backs away to get momentum and comes crashing down on the bus. But then the guy just says something unintelligible, and the dragon seems to unintentionally swerve off course and crashes into the ground. Yes, the guy is privileged with special powers. The girl named Dannoura explains to him what happened. During the excursion, the bus suddenly entered a tunnel and exited in a completely different place. Then it was invaded by another strange girl with an angelic appearance and bizarre behavior with magical powers that she used to kill anyone who bothered her, threatening passengers to participate in a mission. All of this to replenish the number of what she calls sage candidates. She installed a system called the battlefield on the passengers. People start to see a menu in front of them, apparently only visible in their mind. Dannoura is one of the few who doesn't receive this, and the girl who had entered the bus says that it's because not everyone is suitable for it. Those who received abilities begin to want to leave the bus and leave the ones without abilities inside to serve as bait for the dragon. After a spell from a lady that makes them easy prey, they think that this way they can get home safely. Look at these guys' idea. They leave, the dragon comes and wreaks havoc, and we return to the moment when the boy named Takatou wakes up. He's very calm, analyzing the situation, leaving Dannoura bewildered. After he deals with the dragon, Takatou and Dannoura leave the bus, and three guys with abilities fly towards them, and it seems they don't have good intention. Without ceremony, Takatou asks Dannoura if he can kill them. Dannoura is a bit stunned by the question, and the guys are a bit perverted, and it seems they want to do something to her. Takatou doesn't waste time talking and immediately goes for ignorance. What no one knows is that he has the power to kill someone just by pointing in their direction and saying for them to die. And that's what he does to the three guys who fall stiff to the ground. Others don't believe it. He kills another, and only one is left, Daimon. This last one is a healer and tries to use his healing power to revive the two but fails. Keeps trying to trick Takatou, getting close to him to unleash some power. But Takatou notices. Besides, he doesn't just have the power to kill a person just by wishing it. He also has the power to know if a person wants to kill him. For some reason, he leaves Daimon alive, as he made a point of begging him to spare his life. Daimon even takes an obedience collar he has that makes him automatically have to obey a person, and he wishes to be Dannoura's servant. Dannoura doesn't want that, and she gives it to Takatou. This is bad luck for Daimon, right? And Takatou asks Daimon to go to the forest, even though he says it's full of magical beasts, and on top of that, Takatou asks him not to tell anyone about them, and to leave with them every valuable object he has. Yes, the guy is screwed. Takatou explains to Dannoura that he did this because Daimon could betray them in the future. And she asks him how he knows she won't betray him someday. And he says that if it happens it's okay, but he wants to protect her. She wonders why he wants to protect her so much, especially since they barely talked before all this happened. And his answer is as incredible as possible. He says that when the dragon attacked the bus, she clung to him in fear. And then he was able to feel her melons touching him and saw that they were very soft. And she almost falls backwards upon hearing this. After that, the sudden death of the boys was detected by the employee of the bizarre girl who invaded the bus, and he sees this as something suspicious. Takatou and Dannoura arrive in a city. It's the capital, where they are received by a young man who seems to be part of some monarchy. They refuse to help them since Dannoura stays with him in the mansion. Then they escape and arrive in an apparently pleasant village, where beings who are half human, half animal live. A young woman with cat ears named Myril introduces herself, offering help as she wants to get along with the sage candidates. Apparently Myril becomes a guide for them. But at nightfall, after Dannoura buys clothes, they're cornered by several armed men who are with Myril. The men think that Takatou and Dannoura are people without ability. It is not known what these rascals are intending, but it's not good. Takatou starts killing everyone just by wishing it. Well, some he kills. In the case of others, he kills specific body parts. Myril asks for mercy because she has siblings waiting for her at home, and Takatou says that this is no excuse to steal and sell people. That's right, that's what she was doing. Myril and the leader of the other guys try to escape but end up dying on the way. Suddenly some guards arrive wanting to know the situation. They saw everything and were trying to understand why they wanted to sell the two. According to George's assessment ability, who is one of the guards, Takatou and Dannoura seem to have no gift. Captain Edelgard releases the two, and they stay in a hotel. Takatou thinks about staying in the same room as her but decides against it. In her room, while thinking about it, Dannoura ends up meeting a ghost. His name is Moko Dannoura, who would be an ancestor of her family who seems to be there out of nowhere for her. He is there to protect her. Dannoura wonders why he didn't appear before, and she says it was not to attract Takato's attention, who could erase her. That is, the guy can erase even people who are already erased. The ghost reveals that she was the one who prevented Dannoura from being caught by the spell of the girl who invaded the bus. Takatou investigates where the sage candidates might have gone. According to information from a concierge, they went to train in a certain forest. Meanwhile, a sage named Lane, who is a vampire, has a body that Captain Edelgard seized from one of the humanoid animals that were defeated by Takatou. She bites him, improving the physical abilities of the moribund. The train where Takatou and Dannoura are suffers an accident, and they witness a fight happening against a guy and a giant robot. Meanwhile, the guards try to kill the vampire for what she did, but it's in vain. She is immune to bullets. Takatou is noticed by the guy who is dueling with the robot, called Only Aggressor. The guy gets all offended because they don't show reverence to him, who is a sage. This was enough for Takatou to kill him with his power. The aggressor sees this and decides to surrender. He says he has nothing against. He wants to negotiate as if he sensed Takatou's power. And then Takatou asks if he knows how they can return to their world. He replies that he only knows how to return to the world he came from, and Takatou asks if it's possible for him to take them there. He says no because he is fully present in this world. Besides, Takatou is too dangerous for him to take him. The vampire Lane talks to the bizarre girl who put people on the mission, who is called Sion. She shows the vision of the man killed by Takatou and says that this is a very strange ability. Sion seems to already know what it is about. She tries to change the subject to talk about something called darkness. Lane still seems to be on the previous subject, saying that expelling the aggressors is important, but it's a problem to deal with those who can kill the sages. Then Takatou and Dannoura arrive in a Japanese city. They go to a hotel that will serve as their base for some time. A very chic hotel, by the way. A guy named Takebana is there. He seems to be a sage candidate. For some reason, he walks with several bodyguards who, according to him, were chosen among his servants. He proposes to Dannoura that she be his lover, which makes the others angry. He sees that she was embarrassed and ended up considering the idea of having Takatou as a servant too. Dannoura is shocked at how conceited this guy is. And worse, he says he's from the dominator class. She refuses to be his servant and he leaves. Takatou says he thinks she would be more protected with him, and Dannoura just pretends she didn't see that. Then he goes to sleep. From Dannoura's suite, the ghost feels the presence of another spirit nearby. Dannoura wants Takatou's help, so she calls his room to wake him up and he wakes up and leaves the room. He can visualize the spirit walking down the corridor towards Dannoura's room and casting some spell. It's none other than Erika, one of Takebana's servants, quickly uses his power to kill her. Then he calls the reception to report that there is a woman passed out in the corridor. Takebana realizes through a log viewer that she is not alive. Another of his servants named Euphemia believes that she may have tried to bring Dannoura to him or even get rid of her for considering her unworthy. Takebana sends his two other servants, Riser and Chelsea, after Dannoura. Riser catches Takatou and Dannoura in the corridor and begins to cast ice powers to trap them. But Takatou uses his power to kill to make the ice break and also her wand break. She needs the wand to perform her spells, and Takatou threatens to use his power on her if she doesn't stop. She seems to surrender. She's the master of the wand. Takatou asks if she has another wand with her, and she has one reserved stored in a very peculiar place right between her melons. Suddenly the other servant, Chelsea, sends a legion of scary dolls after them. Seeing this, Takatou doesn't waste time and immediately uses his power to kill Riser. Chelsea orders the dolls to scare Dannoura to death. Seeing this, of course, Takatou kills them all in a second. Takebana sends insects under his command to surround Takatou and Dannoura. And Takatou tries to kill the insects but warns Dannoura that if he does, many will fall on him. With her fear of insects, Dannoura thinks it's better to abort this idea. So Takatou does something incredible, uses the energy present in the insects through Takebana's domain to reach Takebana himself and use his power on him to kill him. Stephanie, who is one of the other servants, when she sees Takebana dead, cries desperately for him. Euphemia, on the other hand, seems relieved and leaves, claiming that they are now freed from his domain. As she leaves, she finds herself in a desert where she can see the vampire Lane and an entity called Darkness with whom she was fighting. Lane casts a spell on Euphemia and bites her, asking her to become her servant and tell her everything she knows. Now for Takatou and Dannoura, everything is fine for now, right? No, wrong. When Takatou and Dannoura leave the hotel, they simply find themselves in a zombie apocalypse. With her hands raised towards the darkness, Lane tells Euphemia that she's testing what Takatou can or cannot do. She wants to know if he can kill her or not. Meanwhile, Takatou and Dannoura are worried about what to do with those zombies in the city, and then we see an argument between an undead named Masayuki and the city mayor left by Lane named Ryota. He asks him to leave, but the other says he is doing it under Lane's order. Lane also asks for the city key and Ryota obeys. After that, Masayuki uses a loudspeaker to talk to the zombies and ask them to stop moving. He informs the inhabitants that he is looking for two fugitives, Takatou and Dannoura, and asks them to hand them over to him, otherwise the zombies will continue to move and can turn other people into zombies. Ryota gets furious with the threat made by Masayuki. But Masayuki explains that this is the only way to get what he wants. Takatou and Dannoura hide from the inhabitants. Some find the two and try to attack them, but Takatou quickly kills them. He decides to surrender to Masayuki. Takatou asks him to remove the city barrier for them to use the station. Masayuki feels provoked and says that he is not in a position to ask for anything, and Takatou provokes him even more, saying that he will leave him alive even though he is a son of a bitch. And that's when the undead gets furious and sends his zombies at him, thinking that he cannot kill people who are already dead. Takatou uses his power normally and everyone falls motionless to Masayuki's surprise, and then Masayuki begins to transform into a werewolf out of nowhere. But before he completes this transformation, poof, he falls dead to the ground with Takato's power. Then he goes to Ryota, who begs for his life. He explains that Lane is a sage who left them in charge of this city, and it seems that it was she who ordered Masayuki to kill the two of them. Dannoura is surprised to hear this, as she doesn't understand how Sion, who is also a sage, called them there to become sages. while another sage wants their death. Euphemia advises Lane not to mess with Takatou. The city residents begin to be possessed by Lane's power and become like undead. Dannoura asks Takatou if he can't do to Lane what he did to Takabana, tracking his influence power through the servants. He explains that this case is a little different because before, the source of manipulation was only among his servants. Lane uses a power that replicates several versions of herself. The darkness begins to invade the city. Takatou tries to kill the darkness, but what happens is that she starts launching attacks using Lane's copy. With his mayoral ability, Ryota has a complete view of the city. He realizes that attacks do not happen twice in the same place, and consecutive attacks are not made close to each other. With this, they try to deduce the next attack location. They go to the location just when an attack is happening. Takatou looks at Lane's copy, who is falling, and tells her to die. She dies but causes an impact when falling to the earth, from which they escape. This is because Dannoura's friendly ghost creates a force field to protect them. To Lane's misfortune, as all copies use the same mold, when one dies, all the others die. But now, according to her, she just needs to make copies that are slightly different from the configurations. But when she tries to do this, we see a power hitting her which looks like Takato's power. Then she says that her original body in another dimension was killed. And then the attacks on the city stop. And then suddenly we see a girl wake up in a mansion, what looks like a kind of coffin. She is in a room with many toys around, and she has a stone that reveals a hologram of Lane talking to her. Lane explains that in this video, if she is watching this, it's because her plan worked, she died and the girl survived. She also says that the girl is her, or rather a copy of her. But she is also a separate person who has none of her memories. This is to avoid Takato's attacks, according to her. And then we go to a forest where a girl named Ryoko is killing animals to get their energy. She goes to her tent and notices one of her colleagues with her cell phone, which she simply admits to having secretly taken. She says she wanted to see Takato's monitoring tool, but it was impossible. Ryoko asks who she is. She says she is an American ninja, and concludes that this is one of the classes of her world. Ryoko questions the fact that they don't have monitoring tools. The girl says they had a satellite, but it doesn't work in this world. Well, so far it's clear that they are Takato's stalkers. Now what they want with him, I don't know. A girl named Ayaka Takatou goes through an admission test for a company. Well, from there we already realize that she has the same last name as our hero. Anyway, she has to take care of a monster. The name of the place is quite vague. It's called Independent Higher Order, Research Institute of Life Forms, and the person responsible for the test even says that they are doing cursed experiments there. In the elevator on the way to the place, the recruit asks if she has ever heard the expression Alpha Omega. This is the codename of the test subject she will take care of, and a detail he can kill anything he wants. Well, apparently she is there not of her own free will, since the recruiter emphasizes that she was chosen for being suitable for the position, precisely because she is a teacher, and she laments, asking if there was no one else for this. The recruiter only allows himself to go to a certain place, then leaves the girl alone and wishes her good luck. She opens a door that leads to another dimension. Then she ends up in a very beautiful rural area, by the way, which is underground, I don't know how. The one who lives there apparently alone in a large house is a harmless-looking little boy. None other than our hero Yogiri Takatou. But very young, he is the Alpha Omega creature. Ayaka is indignant that they keep a child imprisoned there and takes him out, asking, or rather, almost ordering him to play. He feels something and points his finger somewhat in her direction. She gets scared and even thinks she might die. But in fact he was killing a spirit that was behind her which had impregnated her shadow. And he even says that sometimes they try to kill him. She's very surprised and he asks if he can go play the next day as it is already getting dark. She apologizes for the reaction she had before and introduces herself. He says his codename and she asks his real name. And he says that before ending up there they called him Lord or Kakashi. He is hungry and she finds herself having to cook for the boy. Then she heats up instant noodles, he eats them and finds them very tasty. Then she thinks of a name to give him and then looks at him and for some reason remembers a dog. So she names him Yogiri. And he adds her last name. She finds it strange but accepts and even teaches him how to shake hands in a greeting. Yogiri in the present moment wakes up. It seems he was dreaming about this same moment from when he was a boy. He wakes up at the moment Dannoura is driving the car and she's stuck in a dead-end street, just because of some rocks in the way. To top it off, a dragon goes towards them, and Takatou kills them before he can attack them. Then more dragons appear and he kills all of them calmly with his power. Then a golden dragon appears, he flees from them. Seeing that he is not dangerous, Takatou does not kill him, but asks him to return, threatening him with death if he doesn't obey. The dragon returns and takes the form of a little girl. She's scared, she just wanted to test if they were qualified to see Swordmaster Sama. Takatou replies that they are there to go to the royal capital, and she insists that they accompany him as he asked to bring promising candidates. And she also says that he rivals the sage. Upon hearing this, Takatou is interested in knowing if he can help them return to their world. The girl makes a deal and they go with her, and in exchange she helps them get to the royal capital. She takes the opportunity to introduce herself, her name is Attila. They go to the place where the swordsmen who are trying to become the next master of swords are choosing the knight of the divine kingdom. The swordmaster Urabe appears and asks them to start killing each other. Just like that, without any ceremony. If less than half of them remain in 10 minutes, then everyone will fail. Takatou asks permission to disqualify himself, and the master adds another order: if anyone escapes from there, everyone fails. Takatou uses his power to kill some, but no one notices. Well, the slaughter begins and ends with some survivors, among them Takatou and Dannoura. Attila begs them to accompany him to become knights of the Divine Kingdom along with Rick, who is another of the swordsmen. And Takatou asks Rick who is this Divine Kingdom. He replies that he is responsible for dealing with the sealed gods or demons. The descendants of the dark gods who were sealed by the Divine Kingdom act in secret. They cross a barrier that leads to another region that has a tower, and they go to the top of this tower. The master asks them to take a look from top to bottom. And there's a strange thing, it's a magic circle that the master says is the end of the world. Dannoura can see what's inside the solidified monster, and there's a man in black and a woman in white. It seems they were frozen while the sword pierced them, and Rick recognizes that it is the Master of Swords and the God of Darkness. The Master begins the test to choose the Knight of the Divine Kingdom. Candidates have to go from the roof where they are to the first floor in 24 hours. And in the tower's path, they have to accumulate 100 points, so it's not allowed to jump from the roof to reach the ground. They start the challenge, pass through some rooms with traps, but only the guy named Linil who has magic stones that restore life is hit. After passing through some obstacles, Takatou, Dannoura and her ghosts stay in a suite to rest. Takatou, without any ceremony, changes his clothes in front of Dannoura and falls stiff on the bed to sleep. Xian monitors what happens in the tower, and notices something wrong with the number of deaths. Surprisingly, she's next to none other than Master Yogiri. She realizes that she needs to replenish the demonic means used for the first barrier soon. Then we go to a courtyard where a couple duels each other. She's there because she was sent to kill people who refuse in her words. It must be someone who did not want to participate in the missions, or even the tests for the Knights of the Divine Kingdom. And she confirms that he is Rikoto. And he knows that she is Heiano's. Motivated by the idea that whoever does not strive deserves to die, she fights, deflecting his powers against him. He is impressed when trying to use another power. Rikoto realizes that he cannot. She replies to him that the power received from the God of Grace can also be taken away by his will. He gets angry saying that his power does not come from God, and tries to use his sword but is easily killed by her. Then his own sword emits a voice speaking to her, summoning her to her next job, which is to deal with two targets who are sage candidates, which are Yogiri Takatou and Tomochika Dannoura. She is frustrated with this mission but continues. On the way, she is taken by surprise by the presence of a man crying, begging her to make him her servant, since she killed Rikoto, the only one who had given him shelter. This guy in a deplorable state is precisely that daimon, whom Takatou left alive on that occasion, and she accepts. Meanwhile, Takatou and Dannoura continue walking through the tower and are surprised by the presence of someone who appeared out of nowhere. He introduces himself as the creator of the tower and therefore can appear from anywhere. He says that they cannot leave there, because the objective of the tower is to maintain the barriers that hide the God of Darkness. Takatou doesn't waste time talking and kills him in the blink of an eye. He goes to a kind of arena where they find a man sitting on a throne organizing duels between several women, among them Theodosia. Takatou asks permission for him to pass through there without disturbing anything they are doing. He kind of insists that they stay and participate too. He barely introduced the warrior women to Takatou, and he killed everyone in the blink of an eye with the exception of a single one who seemed to offer no risk, which in this case was Theodosia. Before our heroes continue, Theodosia asks if it was Takatou who did all that, and he says yes. Upon hearing this, she begs him for help. Theodosia asks Takatou and Dannoura for help to find her sister. They continue walking until they reach the same room where they started. There are the surviving candidates. It seems that Master Yogiri already considers them as Knights of the Divine Kingdom. Suddenly the room is invaded by several identical girls. They bring an emergency warning. The difficulty in maintaining the first barrier. The estimated time for the generation of the God of Darkness to break the barrier is fluctuating. Before one of the girls can finish the sentence, the tower suffers an attack, and when they realize it, they are already near the great sphere they had previously seen from the roof. The second barrier barely manages to stand. A man dressed in black with 6 black wings appears coming from the sky, saying that he thought that if he blew up the tower, the barrier would disappear. The swordmaster Yogiri prepares to fight with a winged stranger. Takatou tries to slip away in the meantime. Dannoura questions if he won't do anything. He replies that he thinks it's risky if Master Yogiri found out what he can do. With the greatest audacity, the man in black asks Yogiri how to get rid of the barrier. Yogiri finds it impertinent of him to ask such a thing. He threatens to kill them one by one if he doesn't speak, and starts doing it. A mere movement of the man's hand and one man falls at a time. From behind the sinister guy appears a girl. His name is Organ and her name is Ludi. Theodosia, accompanied by Takatou and Dannoura, arrive at a place where they meet their people. They are disfigured in large tanks with a purple liquid. It seems that they were placed there so that their magical abilities could be extracted. Meanwhile, Master Yogiri qualified one of his men to be the swordmaster for now. Linil was dumbfounded because the goddess he invoked from his stone not only looked at him against the enemies, she in fact fraternized with them, and it seems that she has known them for some time. The goddess explains to Linil that her dear one, Abargama-sama, is inside the barrier. She discovered that he was sealed there after sending messengers around the world. But no matter what she sends, she cannot defeat the swordmaster. So she thought that if she could send someone like him with a lot of luck, maybe her dear one would return and destroy humanity. Ludi warns the goddess that the barrier has practically disappeared. She asks if this should really be happening. The goddess checks a magic mirror through it. She is surprised to see that the creator of the barrier is dead, and that the goddess's assassin, that guy who wanted to insist that Takatou participate in those duels inside the tower, is also gone. The goddess takes the barrier's core and breaks it. Then the barrier disappears and she frees her dear one who is sealed in it. But there's a detail: when the barrier breaks, she realizes that he is dead and he falls. The figure who was sealed with him had plunged a sword into him. Everyone is impressed. Theodosia takes advantage of everyone being distracted by the situation, grabs her sword and cuts off Master Urabe's head, probably because he was responsible for the captivity of her people in the tower. The goddess also ends up being killed by a blade monster that appears when the barrier breaks. Ludi uses her healing power to restore the goddess, and while Organ goes to retrieve the body of the one he calls Master, who has fallen in the river with the breaking of the barrier. Then he says that his master is a god who craves living sacrifices, and that is why they will dedicate every human being to him. Winged demons go after him. Takatou quickly uses his power to kill them. Meanwhile, the goddess goes crazy, casting fire power everywhere. Meanwhile, Rainos arrives at the scene with Daimon, asking for Takatou. The knight replies that this is not the best time for that. She uses an assessment power to diagnose the knight, and discovers that he has already become a swordmaster. Therefore, he recommends that with his sword, if they stab the goddess, everything will end. He goes there and does it, killing the goddess. Now Rainos wants to know where Takatou is. When she sees him, she feels something strange and makes her fall to the ground. She speaks a strange phrase, says the final destiny of all destinies, and all endings in human form. She quickly assumes a reverent posture and moves away, saying that she only came to leave her companion with him since they already know each other. He tries to refer to Takatou about how strong he is, but with that collar, saying that it was because it had a temporary effect. The survivors meet and talk. Each one says where they are going from there, while Takatou and the new swordmaster go to the royal capital. Theodosia still wants to find her sister, who is none other than Euphemia. They travel together, leaving the fool Daimon behind. But someone is nearby and goes to him asking questions. A young man named Yoshi asks Sion what she intends to do with Takatou. She says she doesn't even know who he is, and he suggests asking the sage candidates about him. And she prefers to summon people Takatou knew from Japan. A guy who looks like a scientist appears among them. He doesn't understand anything about how he got there. Sai introduces himself and asks about Takatou. He seems to know Takatou because he was impressed, concluding that his power must come from parallel worlds. On her smartphone, she detects a tracker signal from him and is super happy. But suddenly an alarm starts ringing. The guy gets desperate. A self-destruction sequence is activated. He asks Sion and Yoshi for help, asking to go back to his world, but there's no time and his head explodes. We return to seeing Takato's mysterious childhood, and we follow Ayaka's daily life with him in the house where he lives, which is even isolated from everything and everyone. He is so sincere that he tells her to her face that her food is bad, which leads her to have fits of rage. And as for the boy's education, well, she will need a lot of help. A delivery robot appears at the house to give supplies. It must be someone the agency sends from time to time. The truth is that Ayaka finds this job a pain. Despite being well paid for it, she takes the first opportunity she has to leave, especially because the robot also has a cooking function. However, according to her recruiter, the robot's food doesn't have a special human touch, which is love. Ayaka doesn't care about that and leaves. After leaving work and spending the money she received, she lives one dream of consumption after another in a luxury suite. Then we see Ayaka in a kind of cell where she sees a small red light on the wall, from where a voice speaks to her. The voice says that she is part of an organization that interrupts calamities and prevents the destruction of the world. Voice wants to talk to her about something. Takatou no longer sees Ayaka there and asks the robot where she is. The robot says she took a vacation. He feels lonely. After a while, he asks the robot where exactly Ayaka is. She says she doesn't know and he asks who knows. Then she replies that the researchers should know. She takes Takatou to the place where there is a secret door in the landscape which leads to another world. Takatou appears to the scientists' security cameras and asks them to let him out. One of the responsible women obeys. The others try to intervene but fall dead. He appears in the security camera viewing room and asks the person in charge where Ayaka is. He says she's on vacation and he asks when she will return. The scientist says she won't return. She was taken by the agency, a global organization against which they can do nothing. Somehow, Takatou manages to reach her. And then we go to that dream Takatou was having when he was sleeping on the bus, right at the moment his journey with Dannoura began. In fact, it was a childhood memory of his, of the moment he killed all the people who were in the way between him and Ayaka, and when he freed her from that place. Then she returns with him to the hidden world where he lives, and she will have to stay there with him for as long as it takes. We return to adult Takatou, sleeping in the car while Dannoura drives. Her ghost squabbles with the two, making Dannoura embarrassed. She wakes up and tries to hide her shame. They arrive at the royal capital. They are surrounded by some men who look like soldiers. Tors, the guy who is the chief of security guard of the central south gate, introduces himself. Takatou shows a jewel that Rick gave him for him to present if he had any problems in the royal capital. The jewel contains a royal family crest. A blonde guy named David interrupts Tors and says that that jewel shows two things: that they are known to Richard and that they are knights of the divine kingdom. David asks them to show the sacred sword they received from the sword master. He proposes a duel for them to prove who they are. The ghost Moko encourages Dannoura to duel him. Using a more differentiated fighting style, she wins against David, who is more orthodox. David guides them through the city. He mentions the explorers who will challenge the underworld. He says that below the royal capital, the god of darkness is sealed, and his progeny is trying to escape. Dannoura is impressed to hear about another god of darkness. Well, and David thinks that as knights of the divine kingdom they should know more about it than he does. Takatou bids farewell to David and goes to the castle of the King of Money, who receives the sage candidates. He will tell them their second mission. A little boy interrupts the king, protesting that they are not his subject. The king will subtly confront him. He draws his sword, cutting several fingers from one of the boy's hands. That's all he does. Then he goes back and sits on his throne and says that to become sages they must achieve a great feat. Sion sees Raynos in another dimension, all white. She is very distressed and confused after the interaction she had with Takatou. That person who went to talk to Daimon asking for information was Ludi. She could not believe Takato's power. Her priority is to kill him, and she needs Daimon to get to him. In another place we see a woman named Divine. She gets off a train. She goes towards a church to talk to someone named Raleigh, her archbishop. He says he is happy with her return, but that he still thought she was repressing the black god in the canyon. She says the black god is defeated. Then he asks about the sealing key and she asks what that is. He thinks she is feigning ignorance. Then he uses something on her and she starts to get strange. Takatou and Dannoura are with other sage candidates. Takatou tries to socialize. He meets other guys with other abilities. One is a cook and the other is a reader. Dannoura also makes friends. Some of them want to ask questions about Takatou. A weird guy comes to talk to Takatou and says he is Mr. Akakashi, and that he is a god of death. And that therefore there is no reason to leave everything to him, the soul taker. He says he was supposed to monitor him but was never allowed to approach or look Takatou directly in the eyes. The lunatic simply pulls out one of his eyes in front of Takatou and says that this eye can detect the supernatural, but that since he arrived there he hasn't been able to. He simply leaves the place after that. Dannoura calls Takatou to talk to her. Some of her friends apologize to Takatou for knowing about his power. One of them, named Ryoko, is terrified of him, because they believe that if he gets angry in any way anyone is done for. Carol is from the agency. Ryoko is from the institute. They were sent to keep an eye on him. Dannoura and Takatou participate in some missions with other candidates, defeating several monsters. Meanwhile, Ludi is with Daimon around the city. She is looking for a woman from the underworld, but since she doesn't know who she is, she will first gather information. They go to a tavern and one of the employees tells Ludi that the sage candidates have already reached the 5th level of the underworld and are celebrating. Nearby there are some guys Daimon knows by whom he doesn't want to be recognized. They are the so-called 3 Eroge nobles. He asks Ludi to do something to help against this. She generates a recognition blocker power so that they don't perceive them. Then a woman enters the tavern and goes to the 3 guys. She reveals her identity. Her name is Aka, one of the people who were left behind in the missions. She's very angry and thirsty for revenge. She starts beating one of them to death. After that, she says she will do this to each one every day. Sion enters the tavern and goes to Ludi and Daimon, who were just observing the whole scene. She asks about Takatou and they tell her about his ability, and she tells them about the underworld. A good exchange of information. Ludi and Daimon arrive in the underworld looking for a certain sister of her master, and then she appears to them. Ludi is surprised to see her and calls her Lady Mana. Daimon also seems surprised by her and falls in love, which is not new coming from him. Daimon asks if she was sealed there. She says yes, and it was by her own brother, although she doesn't know the reason. Even being sealed by him, she feels a deep affection for the scoundrel. She can even smell her brother on them, and asks if they have any of her brother's belongings with them. Ludi confirms and gives her the seal key, which must be the one that Archbishop was looking for. In another place, that Ak invades a country and comes face to face with her king. She demands that he deactivate the seal to weaken the gift. He tries to attack her, but it's in vain since she manages to kill him in the blink of an eye. She thinks the seal must have been deactivated with his death. Back in the underworld, Lady Mana appears in a place there that has a different atmosphere. A not at all gloomy, all lucid and colorful atmosphere. Ludi explains to Daimon that they are her descendants with her brother. Then Daimon is shocked and Ludi explains that it's not quite what he's thinking. She is capable of creating lives with imagination. Meanwhile, Ayaka continues going around killing everyone. This time it's the woman who would be the king's right-hand man. Takatou and Dannoura walk through the city, and a young man supervised by a young woman aims at Takatou with a weapon to kill him. Well, Takatou can even sense when someone wishes to kill him, so it doesn't seem like this will work. The guy is being coerced by this woman to kill Takatou. She uses a device by which it seems she is torturing the guy. Before he decides, boom. He himself is already dead, and it was by Takato's power. The woman talks to the other guy, now asking him to aim at Dannoura. Takatou can feel this and pulls her away from the shot that comes next, and that ends up killing a guy in front of her. Takatou realizes that someone is watching them. Moko found the source of the electromagnetic waves. Then they arrive at a guy in a helicopter, another suspect who wants to kill Takatou. Dannoura grabs him and takes him to Takatou. And Takatou realizes that he doesn't run. This concludes that he knows about his power. Seeing that the guy was captured, a queen of the underworld named Yama, to whom it seems the guy is a subordinate, decides to fulfill a pact that is not very clear. But it seems to have something to do with him dying since he keeps begging her not to do it. Then Takatou uses his power and kills Yama, freeing the guy from her. After that, the robot appears with a knife thrown at them. With cat-like reflexes, Dannoura manages to hold the knife before it hit Takatou. And then Takatou changes the robot's configuration to administrator command mode, and she falls stiff. He looks at the guy and says he will tell everything he knows. In the underworld, Ludi is frustrated and apologizes to Daimon for him being there. He's even surprised by this, and she gives Daimon the seal key and says that whoever is holding it will be the representative of her master. Daimon thinks all this is too good to be true. After getting the information he needs, the noble Takatou gives in to revenge and kills the guy. He explains to Dannoura that she is a robot made based on a friend he played with when he was little. The sage candidates are worried about Aka's actions. As their powers come from the underworld, Sora Kim, a sage candidate from the idol class, decides that they must go to the underworld. Ludi tells Lady Mana that her brother died. She takes it well. And Daimon emphasizes that Master Ludi thought of asking for her help to get revenge. Lady Mana accepts, but first she has something to do, which is to give birth to her brother. Then something unclear happens, but it seems she tears off Ludi's arms to be able to generate her brother, since his essence is preserved there. From then on, Lady Mana intends to go to Ludi's brain to use the memory she has of her brother to be able to create him. Daimon intercedes for Ludi's life. Lady Mana agrees to let her live but asks him to release the seal, and Daimon obeys. In another place, after some missions, the sage candidates are having a meal in a castle. Dannoura notices Takatou's absence, and he is alone somewhere outside the mansion where they are. Sion appears in the castle and thinks the tests are too easy. She thinks they need an awakening event, and says she will make everyone fight each other until only one person remains. Dannoura goes after Takatou and realizes he is in danger. He is falling in a landslide that started to form after seeing David supposedly drunk and trying to help him. During the sweep that Theodosia is doing to save girls from her people, she reunites with her sister Euphemia, acting in the same place. Sion is there among the sage candidates, continuing her explanation, saying that 1 hour after the start of the mission, those who do not kill anyone will be killed. And also those who leave the castle walls will be killed. That guy named Seishi, who had previously messed with Takatou, and who also has the power to kill a person just by wishing it to happen, approaches Sion and says that she should also die. She replies that if someone manages to do that, the judgment ends, and he feels that she is implying that it is not possible, and that it is better for him to stay alive to try to survive the challenge with other people. She hurt his ego and he tries to use the power on her and nothing happens. It turns out that she has the power to revive immediately after dying, so his power is useless on her. He doesn't accept it and keeps insisting, until she gets stressed out and gives him a small flick that kills him instantly. Returning to Takatou, he is free-falling with David's body. He doesn't know what to do until he decides to use his power to kill the impulse that pulls him down. Thus he manages to cushion the impact of the fall and place David on the ground. Returning to Ludi and Daimon, it seems that their plan worked and the seal is gone, showing that Mana's brother wants her to be free. She asks Daimon to leave because if she keeps looking at his ugly face too much, she might change her mind about sparing Ludi's life. Daimon takes Ludi out. She is a bit debilitated. So far so good, except that the ground begins to turn into quicksand. Then she explains to Daimon that the preparations for Mana to give birth to the master have begun. That was her integrated into the environment around her. In other words, they are inside Mana herself. If they don't leave soon, they will be absorbed. Ludi does Daimon a favor and kicks him hard out of the castle so he can escape. She stays behind and seems to take the worst of it. Theodosia goes with Euphemia somewhere inside a carriage where she is accompanied by a girl named Risley, who explains to Theodosia that Euphemia can feel the presence of her people. They are going to the royal capital, looking for someone named Yogiri, who must be our hero Takatou. Or at least Theodosia doesn't seem to know this, since she says that Master Takatou will also be there. Then Takatou sees Daimon running towards him from afar. Yes, he ended up very close to where Ludi and Daimon were. Daimon is trying to escape the entrails. He sees Takatou in front of him and immediately apologizes and puts himself in a position of reverence. Takatou recognizes him, and seeing that Lady Mana's thing is coming with everything, Daimon hides behind him. Just using his power, Takatou asks the liquid portion to die and it completely dissolves. It turns out that they are on the 7th layer of the underworld, and Takatou wants to return to the 6th layer. He asks Daimon for help to reach that layer, and also asks him to carry David's body, who is unconscious or something similar. Then we go to what seems to be a mission inside a mansion. A sage candidate from the gunslinger class enters it. Hidden on an upper floor is Yukamasa, another sage candidate who holds a book that seems to tell what will happen in the immediate future, and that he can manipulate other futures using his fingers. He reads in the book that the girl will shoot him. Surprised, he erases the text, filling it with another description instead, saying that someone will enter the same room as the gunslinger, and someone really does enter. It's Aka. Yukamasa seems to get scared and flee. Dannoura and her ghost wait outside the mansion for something. This mansion is the place where Takatou and Daimon are going to ascend a layer. Yukamasa predicts their entry and he starts writing that the ceiling will collapse on them, but the book erases his text and shows another where he dies. He gets desperate and tries to erase this in every way, but it's no use. When Takatou and Daimon enter the place, Takatou quickly kills him by simply telling him to die, as he senses that Yukamasa intended to kill him. The sage candidates start killing each other, each with a power crazier than the other. A girl named Mikosh, who also has a ghost with her, crosses Dannoura's path. When Dannoura sees the girl's ghost, she is enchanted by her beauty and begins to praise her, and speak ill of Moko's appearance. Even though the other only has the ability to count things and Moko has attack powers and has helped Dannoura in physical combat at various times, Dannoura keeps disparaging Moko. This makes her furious and she possesses Mikosh's body, and then she starts attacking Dannoura through her. Since Moko has the power to control the armor Dannoura uses, she takes off her armor. But then Takatou arrives at this moment and scolds Dannoura, and it seems he will try to kill Moko Moko. But Mikoshi's ability itself is necromancy. Her spirit expels Moko Moko from her and threatens Dannoura and Takatou. But Takatou simply kills her with his power in the blink of an eye. Then it seems that Moko Moko wants to make peace with Dannoura, but she was still resentful of the ghost, right? And rightly so. And suddenly a large explosion happens in the place. What generated the explosion was a girl who activated a power while trying to defend herself from Ayaka. Ayaka manages to survive. A medical unit talks to her as if she were a part of her, informing that 60% of her body was damaged. She has two options: wait until she heals naturally or regenerate through dragon healing. The unit warns that dragon healing has an irreversible consequence. To heal, she has to transform into a dragon. Then she thinks, is that all? Okay, she invokes draconic healing and turns into a big dragon. This new form gives her an ability, the activation of warrior dragons. Her teeth fall from her mouth and transform into versions of Ayaka that together form an army. The army goes towards the 5 survivors. Among them are Takatou and Dannoura. With the strength of his thought, Takatou killed the entire army instantly. Seeing this, Ayaka goes towards them. Dannoura realizes that she is very similar to the dragon that attacked the bus they were on when everything started. With just the power of thought, poof, the dragon also falls. After all this, Sion appears to them. Takatou is not in the mood and kills the girl's right ankle, making the wretch fall and prostrate herself. She tries to retaliate with some spells, but he immediately kills her power. He wants to know from her how he can return to his world. If she summoned them, then she must know how to take everyone back. She teleports to the cell phone where she talks to her subordinate Yoshi. And she realizes that parts of her body are dying. Then she realizes that the same is happening to Yoshi. Then she returns to Takatou and asks him to spare Yoshi's life. He awaits her answer. Then she gives him the coordinates of his world and the energy source, which in this case is a philosopher's stone. With that, she explains that he will need several parts of it if he wants to go to his world. Every sage he killed had a philosopher's stone, but they lost their power when he killed them. Then he lets her live for her contribution, so they leave. Sion sees a giant blood formation coming towards her. It's Mana's fluids coming. Yeah, it seems she won't escape death. If not by Takato's hands, it will be by Mana's. Her fluids capture Sion. Mana tells her that she will be a source of nutrients for her brother. She drowns Sion in her fluids. Sion is defeated but says that the name of whoever will assassinate her will be Takatou. Mana's fluids invade the city and break the barriers that were erected. Daimon is embarrassed, but explains to Takatou and Dannoura how Mana became like this. And then Mana approaches and Takatou just uses his power, wishing her to die, and of course, she dies, dissolving into dead fluids. The survivors use an aerial teleportation device that only God knows the name to leave the city. And Takatou and Dannoura don't know how they will leave the city. Moko Moko creates a suit for her that has a cape that makes the user able to fly. Dannoura is a little embarrassed by the suit, and Takatou has to grab her to be able to fly and then make her even more embarrassed. Daimon disappeared from the sight of others. He ran away. Dannoura observes that he didn't seem to want to enter their world, and then the two leave with other warriors, and with Euphemia and Theodosia they met along the way. And now their mission is to gather the Philosopher's Stones to be able to return to their world.